Coe Hall on Oyster Bay was built as the summer home of William Robinson Coe. The 65-room Tudor Revival-style mansion was built between 1918 and 1921.
So it's a relatively new building. It's not old at all, but it was built to look as though it is 400 years old. It's in the Elizabethan style with great floor-to-ceiling windows, mullioned windows, wonderful carved stonework and woodwork. So it is built to evoke the time of Renaissance England during the reign of Queen Elizabeth. And it is a 400-acre estate. It's one of the last that survives, with all of its land and all of its great greenhouses and its camellia house and all of its lawns and the garage and the hay barn. And 400 acres on Long Island is a huge park. It's really magnificent. With its great trees, the landscape was designed actually by the Olmsted brothers, who were the great inventors of parkland scenery like Central Park.
In 1955, Coe willed the mansion to the state. Today it is a house museum and public park.
It's a great historic site because it's coming up to being nearly 100 years old. So it has historic integrity because it's so unaltered from its original time. And it is very beautiful. The landscape was built to be gorgeous. It was built to be looked at and admired and enjoyed. And that's what our visitors do today. Similarly, the house was built to be impressive. And it is impressive, and so our visitors come in and it is awe-inspiring, but it gives them joy, and they simply enjoy the place, and we teach our visitors about the history of the house and the history of the style of the house and the landscape and how these buildings relate to the traditions in England in the 19th and in the 18th centuries, how this tradition here goes back to Roman times 2,000 years ago when we know villas were built in the countryside outside Rome. And so it is possible to learn the history of architecture, the history of landscape. We teach the history of furniture. So it's a very rich cultural resource here at Planting Fields.
One of the unique things about Coe Hall is how well it's been preserved throughout the years. In fact, most of the furniture that you see in the house is original to it, donated by their grandson, Michael Coe.
We have tried to put this place back the way it was, particularly around 1923 or so, when this was completely photographed inside by a wonderful woman photographer. And we use that as a kind of baseline of the way it looked at. But it always looked like this, yes, absolutely.
Michael Coe continues to look after and preserve his grandparents' former home. He says he has fond memories of visiting there as a child and spent a lot of time with his grandparents there.
I spent one summer here when my parents went to Europe, and so I came here with my nurse, actually. But I was allowed to roam around anywhere. And for a little kid to roam around these grounds and through all the greenhouses, it was, it was magical. There was nothing like it.
Coe says he was fortunate to be able to experience what it was like to actually live in one of these Gold Coast mansions, and says the landscape of Long Island is much different today.
Well, in this part of Long Island, in fact over most of Long Island, the changes in the landscape have been enormous. Long Island has become from suburbanized to even urbanized in many areas. And very few of these so-called Gold Coast estates on the North Coast have maintained themselves with all their buildings and interiors the way life was then. So this is over 400 acres. There's not many places like this anymore that have been preserved. They've all been cut up for one reason or another, or McMansions built, or Levitt towns, or God knows what. Totally different picture. There's no more farms around. This place was surrounded with farms everywhere when I was a child. So people who come here now to this place will enter into a world that was going, 75 or 100 years ago when they see places like this. But there's very few that are actually intact like Planting Fields. I still keep my interest up in Planting Fields. I put a lot of time of my life into seeing this place preserved as a real monument, not just to my family or to the kind of rich plutocrats who lived up here once, but a way of life in Long Island that doesn't exist anymore. Even the richest people can't live like this anymore. So it's been a worthy project as far as I'm concerned.
As a state park and house museum, Coe Hall at Planting Fields Arboretum continues to be open to the public so they too can see what it was once like to live in one of these historic Gold Coast mansions. In Oyster Bay, Collora reporting.